everybody? It's your host, Christal Jordan, and this is Let's Get Crystal Clear. Thank you guys for tuning in. Can I say that the subscribers on this channel are absolutely amazing. I appreciate you guys so much, all the comments that you leave. So if you haven't subscribed and you're just watching now, please go to the left of this box and click subscribe so you can be a part of all the things that we have going on. We just did a great book giveaway and we have more things coming. So make sure that you're subscribed so that you'll be aware of all the great interviews that we have coming for you. Speaking of great interviews, I'm really excited about tonight. Tonight is like a full circle interview for me because we've been talking about things that deal with health, especially with African American women. That's kind of my passion. So I enjoy talking about things that affect us. We had the Electric Docs on a couple of weeks ago. I interviewed Quad from Married to Medicine. It was a great interview, and she shared about her struggle with fibroids. And that caused me to go to the doctor and learn that I too am dealing with fibroids, which caused a great friend of mine, Ms. Shanika from the radio station here in Atlanta, shouts out to Ms. Shanika on 107.9, to tell me that I had to have my next two guests here today to talk about this epidemic in the African American community, and they are royalty in our community. I want you to help me welcome Dr. Sebi's daughter, Kellie, and grandson, Izeah. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for being here. I seriously feel like this is like a full circle moment.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about things, like I said just a couple of weeks ago, Quad. Earlier last year in 2019, I interviewed a young lady that was talking about the issues, the infertility of African American women. That's something that we had never heard about. You know, Black women unable to get pregnant. That's definitely not something our community was, dealing with years ago. But we see so much of that coming on. I have friends that, between 30 to 45 that are dealing with breast cancer at a far more alarming rate than years before. We see so many different changes, and we know that your father was, this pioneer in explaining to our community so much about food and educating us on the fact that food is not just something to make us feel good, right?
Yes.
So I want you to talk a little bit about that and about what you learned from him. But you been a nurse for 23 years, so you have that I guess that commercial medicine background, but you also was able to pair it with his wisdom and his holistic medicine. So you are just a double-edged sword.
I thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. Walking with my father, quite a feat. He was not a conventional man, and I'm grateful.
Yeah.
He taught me a lot, and one thing he taught us how was to eat, and that was eating to live.
Right.
Not eating to be satisfied, but to satisfy your body's ability to do the job that it was meant to do from the beginning. A lot of people don't understand that it's just not that eating food should be for our daily intake, but years to come. We would all like to grow old in a way and not die by default. So walking with my father, understanding the rules and principles of nature are very important. And for that I appreciate, because just like soul food in some kitchens, you have some people who fix a different amount of meals to satisfy the family. Well, we were in the garden. We had found out a lot about things that mattered from the earth first, then to the plate. And that made for a great upbringing. Right. You know, when you're young, you don't know how to appreciate it till it's time for you to step up and think about when your father or your parents teach you how to walk, it's time to learn how to fly with it.
Absolutely.
So I took that and became a nurse, because working for my father for so many years, we worked with quite a few doctors who were interested in what he had to say, especially after his court case in the 80s in New York, and he was exonerated. It behooved me to move on with my life to figure out how I'm going to bring my present as a woman under my father as his daughter. So becoming a nurse was very important to me, but bringing those together helps me to understand those who have a natural journey, but those who come from a journey of medicine and Western medicine is very important. So to bring those two together is my pleasure, and to help women is my pleasure. So it's very important for us to always have these kind of conversations, because I really want to believe that I've been prepared to give this kind of information because of my background with my father. So I really appreciate working with women.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think that's I really do believe that you having both those backgrounds allows you to be even stronger and more impactful. You know, I've worked with OBGYNs. My initial, one of the first jobs I had was working for a hospital. And I'm aware and have heard that there's so many questions that they can't answer. And like you said, a lot of them are interested and, you know, may not be able to say in mixed company or, you know, and publicly that there's so many questions that they don't have answers for. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to ask you, Izeah, because I believe, just watching what we see going on, I live here in Atlanta, and you can go from one side of town to another side of town. You go from a side of town where there's a lot of African Americans, there's a dense African American population, and you'll see fast food restaurant after fast food restaurant after fast food restaurant. You go to another side of town, and you don't see that. Do you feel like there is I hate to say conspiracy, I hate when people say conspiracy theories and things like that, but do you think that there is an attack on African Americans and it stems from the way we eat and how we've been taught to eat?
Well, it's not just African Americans, it's all people. Because the food today, like you said, in certain areas, they want to make sure that they populate us with chemicals, processed food, so that destroys the body, that destroys the mind, that destroys the soul. So processed food is killing our society, and it's not helping us become to our full understanding of who we are as people. So yes, it's population control when you see the McDonald's in this one particular area, then you drive 20 minutes out and you don't see one McDonald's. That should tell us something, that we need to really change the way we eat so we can change the way we think, so we can be better. But fast food is destroying us as a whole because it causes so many diseases, obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And we think it's okay and it's fashionable to walk around with a Starbucks cup and you posting it on Instagram. That's mucus, that's inflammation. There's no nutritional value in that. Or you take your kids to McDonald's on Friday and you tell them you love them and you take them to McDonald's and get them a Happy Meal. There's no nutritional value in that. So it's time for us to truly wake up as a society so we can be better.
You mentioned children, and I know that I think that's one of the biggest issues because I think we just don't know. And you mentioned growing up in the environment that you all had, very, very different than what probably 90% of the population is growing up in. For a lot of mothers, that is how they show love to their children, by buying them that Happy Meal. You know, that's all. If that's all you've been taught, that's all you know to do. So I want to go back to you, Kellie, and ask, how do you start? I mean, it just seems the problem seems to be so overwhelming because you have a generation of people that not only do they not know about nutritional value, they're not even cooking. You know, years ago, at least you would have that family meal 2 or 3 times a week. You didn't get to eat at McDonald's every day. But now we have, you know, everyone is working. The home is definitely much different. The structure of the home is much different. So you have mothers that are working all day and they're picking up food, fast food for their children in the evening. And they have no idea what that food is doing to themselves and their children. And by the time they hit their middle age, now they have all these issues. So where can we start re-educating the mothers so that they can pass that on to the children?
One thing we got going on right now is we're in the time of plant-based information. The other thing is we have a wide variety of grocery products out there at different grocers. We even have farms that now have little markets where you can pick up food. So it is there. Okay. My point of saying all that is that it is here. How do we get started? Let's start with our pantry. Now let's really think about it. Let's just have that kind of clarity talk right now. Let's be crystal clear.
Okay.
If I really want to get to know you, I don't want to sit down and talk to you over a cup of tea. I'm going to look in your pantry because that's really going to tell me who you are in your refrigerator. Yeah. So when we start thinking about what we want to do, we need to start thinking about the answers to our problems in our refrigerator. Wow. in our cupboards. So that thought has got to lead us to some action. So our behaviors have got to start, we have to change that narrative. So how can we start? Look in our refrigerators and ask yourself, has this gotten me from A to B since I've been eating it? Can we honestly say that carrots has kept us away from wearing glasses? So there's been some myths. So what I want to say is we really need to up our game, and being that we have so much education in our grocery stores, we have a lot of information online. We can start by looking at what we have. Alkaline diet is a great one.
Right.
And we have Google, who will tell you most anything you want to know.
Right.
YouTube is beautiful just as well. And you can go on there and figure out what is it that I want to do, but you got to ask the question, and you got to take that question, find those truths within your food, and then put it into action.
Right.
Kids are easy when you start to introduce those kind of loving foods. If you start.
If you start early.
And
right.
if you start, you just have to start.
Right.
So beginning with your thoughts about what's in your pantry. So partnering with your pantry is important.
Right.
And
Partnering with your pantry, I like that.
that's very important. You have to go there. And even if you just start with drinking spring and alkaline water in your home, having these conversations with your kids around the table when you are home are important.
Let me ask you this, because I want to get into just some hard truths, because you do hear a lot. You can go to YouTube, you can go to Google, you can go to a lot of different documentaries. I think kind of jump started this craze, you know, What the Health, and there's several Game Changer, all these different documentaries, but there's conflicting information, right? So we got everybody buying bottled water. What is the difference between spring and alkaline water? And am I doing myself a disservice if I'm not drinking, if I'm drinking purified water as opposed to spring or alkaline?
Well, you want to drink spring water like we was just discussing not too long ago when I picked up the bottle of water. One of the young ladies said it's not alkaline. Well, right now that's a trend that's, you know, very popular, and most people are getting, you know, conflicted on which water to drink.
Right, yes.
And all you want to do is stay hydrated. So the best water you should be drinking is spring water.
Okay.
Alkaline water can alter your pH, give you gallstones, kidney stones. It's very harmful and detrimental if you're not going through stage 4 radiation treatment or going through chemo. That's what that water is for, to help them put the electrolytes and the minerals back into their body. Now, average person like myself, or just the average person going to college or school, whatever, should not be drinking alkaline water. So spring water is the best water for you.
Okay. You guys did a good job with that. He knows his stuff. Now, let me ask you this. So we were talking earlier, and I mentioned to you that I was told I had fibroids years and years ago, but they weren't anything to be concerned about. My doctor said as long as I wasn't uncomfortable, and they would just kind of monitor them, and everything was fine. So I left the doctor's office in relief, thinking, okay, everything is good. Flash forward 10 years later, and now everything is not good. I'm told that I need to have a hysterectomy. I'm in a lot of pain. I'm having really uncomfortable periods. Like, things are not good. Obviously, there was a disconnect someplace. What is that, Brett? And I know that different doctors are different ways. I don't think my doctor was I've heard the similar story from many women. Where is the disconnect, and how do we know if the information that we're getting is good information, or is information that we need to further continue to push and do more research on?
I think we need to lean into that conversation, because 10 years before you found it, he found it. So what we're saying is tumors are normal. Tumors are not normal. And I want to start there. So that disconnect started right there. Once we find some abnormal tissue that has proliferated into a tumor, we need to look at it and say, okay, what's the difference between how she feels right now and how she's going to feel in 10 years? We are quick to look far into the future of our patients and go, okay, where are they going to go next? But did we do that for you? We failed you. Like, we have failed each other for many years. So we need to continue to ask the right questions. We need to keep talking about it, because that small tumor 10 years ago that was nothing has now become something that now you can't deal with as a woman.
Right.
Women who have fibroids have heavy bleeding, cramping. They have very bad hormonal problems. They have so many anxiety, constipation, bladder problems that go with it. And then from there, they get the anemia. Then they get the hysterectomy. And now that brings on more issues. So let's go back to that tumor that was nothing. Was it something? We need to continue to lean into these kind of conversations and commercialize these problems that we women are having with these tumors. Let's call it what it is, because although it's not cancerous, it still makes an impact on your life.
Absolutely.
And on mine and every other woman. And like you said, we're now in a time where women now may not be able to have children due to these tumors. So, okay, how are they growing? We know that you're a life giver because you're a female, and that's beautiful. But what else are you growing in there? And what's growing it? It may be your food. And I say chicken is the devil.
And see, I said that to you too, because I was told that red meat was the devil. And so we think, okay, well, I have a lot of friends, well, I can eat chicken and fish, but I won't do beef. And I'm like, I really want a steak. But chicken, especially with our community, is our saving grace. It's like, I'm not going to have the steak, but I'm going to go to the chicken. Chicken is not, it's not the saving grace. We stay away from the chicken.
I would love to say chicken saved your life, but 10 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
And I would love to say that the hormonal balance in which it takes over in your body, it doesn't exist, but it does.
Right.
I would love to say when you killed that chicken, that what runs through that chicken's blood, and that those antibiotics they feed it, that amount of poison that they give that chicken did not transfer over to you, but I'd be lying to you.
Right.
So I want to stop the lie and say that that tumor 10 years ago was a problem then. And I really believe we need to change the narrative of when it comes to women.
Right.
And that's why we offer the products we do. Because although this has been the history of women, the history of people in different communities for so many years, we need to find some way of giving our body the nutrients, the minerals that it requires to help that body get back in alignment. And that's what's important.
Right.
Because we can talk about that little tumor, but wonder if we would have caught it with a better diet when it was the size of a raisin. Where would you be now?
Just and not in pain, not having to go through a major surgery that can have a thousand different after effects.
And thousands of dollars. And some of us don't have insurance anymore. So what are we left to do in the community?
Wow.
What are we left to do?
Now I want to take a turn, because we know I became familiar with Dr. Sebi from, I represent TLC. So we all know that Lisa was one of the loudest voices, and championing him and just, the way of eating. And I know, just from working with Chili especially, she's just a huge advocate of eating to live as opposed to just eating for enjoyment. But watching the change in Lisa that her fans were able to witness, and seeing her go from someone whose weight might have fluctuated to someone who just looked vibrant and was so much clear-headed. There were a lot of people that suggested that Dr. Sebi, especially because it seemed to be, at that time especially, just ahead of its time, right? So there's a lot of people that assume that his death was a conspiracy, that modern medicine, Western medicine, did not want to see the information that he had get out, right? Do you all believe that?
There was no conspiracy to my grandfather's death, so let's just clear that up.
Okay.
If they wanted to kill Dr. Sebi, they could have killed him years ago. When I was 7, 8, 9, why would they want to kill him at 80-something years old?
Yeah.
My grandfather died in a prison, and there wasn't no conspiracy.
Do you think that because at the time that I remember hearing about him back then, and even from the court case in the 80s, people weren't listening. People weren't, not the majority, like they are now. Now he's considered a hero. Now people are going back and probably, looking up the videos. Yeah. Do you think that the message was ahead of its time, and he would have been welcomed and championed now if he was here sharing the information?
Well, let me tell you, this is a man who had a 3rd grade education, and he lived his truth. Wow. His truth was that he had a high-fat diet at one time. My father was fat and sick and impotent.
Oh.
And that's how the journey started.
Okay.
See, the journey didn't start with just him talking about it. He had to walk the walk.
Wow.
So the important part to this story is he was a sick man. And I have pictures to prove it. I won't put them on Instagram. I think that's very private, but maybe one day we'll all share those pictures. But it started with him, and because he was healed, he then shouted it to the heels that this is what helped him. He wanted to help others. So that's how the journey originally started. So was he before his time? He was right on time for him, because if he didn't do that job,
He wouldn't have been here.
no, I wouldn't have been here.
There you go.
So that's the beauty of it. I'm a living witness that I'm sitting here saying that it worked because I'm here. So for this man who's taking this walk, it may be unconventional and it may not be the truth of others, but it's my truth and it's his. And for that reason, I think it was right on time. And it was a beautiful journey. I enjoy my father teaching others how to heal themselves, because we should all be wanting to do that. We should all be wanting to lean into our health, find out more about what we should do, understand what we're being told from the hospital or the doctor's office. We shouldn't fear it. We should actually embrace it and go do something about it. So was it bittersweet to have my father die? Yes, but between the day he was born to the day he died, he did some good stuff.
Oh, he did some amazing
He did some good stuff. Can we agree that,
Absolutely.
or we wouldn't be talking about him today?
We wouldn't, and I think like I said, now so many people are looking towards his videos and his information. There's a whole resurgence of people, and I think that is really because of what's happening with our health. We realizing that modern medicine, giving us pills for diabetes, and so many people like, what, do you want to be on pills and more pills for the rest of your life? That's not the answer. I think people are starting to realize that, and so his message continues to live on. Now I have to touch on the documentary, because tragically, well, Nipsey Hussle is similar in the fact that his life, he lived it so unapologetically and so much as trying to teach other people. He was taken from us, but we know that he was a part and was actually going to play your father, correct?
I don't know if he was going to play him, but he did want to put out a documentary on my grandfather. That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that brought additional attention, and now Nick Cannon is producing it. Correct. Tell us a little bit about what we can expect when this is slated to be released.
It's still being worked on right now as we speak.
Okay.
It's going to be an amazing documentary. Shout out to Nick Cannon. Dates, we will have further notice with that. But
we have their information, so we'll make sure they come back when it's time to talk about that. Nick Cannon is actually someone that's dealing with his own illness and has been very candid, and is another, I think, teacher in his own way for the community. So kudos to him for that. What do you guys want to see as a result of this documentary?
Well, actually, we living in it, because, like you said, our society is, starting to wake up and tired of the westernized medicine and tired of the doctors misleading us.
Yeah.
We tired of being tired and being sick. So when you're tired, you start researching and seeking. So the fact that our society is seeking knowledge, and I could walk around and see people talking about my grandfather, it's amazing, because as a kid, you wouldn't have believed me if I told you my grandfather was curing AIDS. You would have thought I was a crazy kid. So to see my generation waking up and going to tell their parents, well, hey, Mom, you should stop eating corn and carrots because of Dr. Sebi, it's amazing.
That is a huge difference in a short period of time. I've been able to, we've been able to see that difference from, I remember when Left Eye first started talking about it, and her documentary to now, the way the reception is so different. I want to ask you, Kellie, to give, because I know people need takeaways, so I'm really big in being able to give people something that they can take right with them, If there were 3 takeaways that you could give some of the women that are watching, we know that this show is primarily watched by African American females. What are 3 things that we can do to start right now, besides partnering with our pantry, which I love very much, my pantry, we're going to have to restructure it now. But what are 3 things that we can do to get started as we're still in the beginning of 2020?
Number 1, forgive yourself. You didn't know.
I love that.
Forgive yourself. Start to love yourself and walk in that positivity. Because there is beauty out there for you, and have courage. Have courage. It's more than you out there. It's me, it's you, it's all of us. Number 2, get into that pantry and make some definite changes that you can start with. Get in there and start small. And one thing I want to say is drinking water is important, but also eating to live. Find your truth within that. And I would say number 3, walk in a way that makes you feel beautiful. And that's eating to take on that love and encouragement that you want in your life. You've looked for it outside of your life for so long. It's actually inside. So Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz is actually inside. That love that you want is inside. So please, be your best queen. And take care of your body. Take care of your body.
I mentioned to you that we had AJ Johnson here a couple of weeks ago.
Beautiful.
And she talked about, she's such a great teacher as well, an advocate.
Beautiful.
And she talked about loving that beauty and that healthiness has to come from the inside. It can't start externally. I do have to ask you one more question. I was going to wrap up, but I think it's really important because we also see a surgence of mental health issues. And I want to ask you about the connection between the food that we're eating and the mental health issues that we see. We see so many people suffering with just depression, severe depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. There's so much of that happening. And I know that there's not really a quick answer for that, but can you speak really quickly to that relationship between what we're putting in our bodies and the outlook that we have from our mind?
That's a beautiful question. The challenge being that we are so far from perfection with our food sources that anything's possible. Our immune systems are very low. Our hormonal balance is way off. The amount of poison foods that we're intaking is to a record high. Is there a correlation? Correlation? Yes, there is a big correlation between our food and our mental health. You don't need a gun in front of your face to say I'm about to be killed. We're doing it slowly by what we eat. We're doing it slowly. So here's something. I would say try a plant-based diet. You would look at TV right now and scientists are saying globally that a plant-based diet will save our lives. But it brings clarity to certain areas of your life that you didn't believe actually exist anymore because you're so caught up in what your food sources are giving you. When you intake meat from an animal, you're taking on their makeup, and that's their hormones. That's everything that has to do with them, epinephrine, everything that ran through their course in their body before they died. How would you deal with that?
Right.
Your body doesn't know how. So of course we've been inundated with substances that knock us off. I could just take sugar and knock you off.
Yeah.
I don't have to do much.
Right.
But I don't need a gun
Right.
to prove that I can kill you.
Right.
We
Wow.
do it slowly, hand to mouth.
Hand to mouth.
Intermittent fasting is good. It helps to bring clarity. That's why I like a plant-based diet. I'm not just saying that because he was my father, because just like him, I have to take the walk just like him. So I have to think about these things. Have I taken in too much sugar? Is that why I'm eating ice? Some women ask. Is that why I'm up all night fidgety? Is this why I'm constipated? Is this why I have abnormal cramping? I say yes. Let's change the narrative.
Let's change the narrative. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. I hope that you'll come back and definitely keep us up to date with what's going on with the documentary. We know it's going to be amazing. Nick Cannon is an amazing force right now, and he'll be great for that. But we definitely want to be able to support you all and be able to get the word out. So definitely we want to have you guys come back. Thank you all for watching. I know that you all will have questions. We're going to include a link here so you can research and find more. But I think one of the most powerful things I got from this conversation is that Dr. Sebi had a 3rd grade education. Something happened to him and he decided to figure it out for himself.
There you go.
That's so powerful, the ability to love yourself and to put yourself first, so much so that you do the research to figure out how can you help. And him doing that for himself has helped a generation and continues to. So I hope that we can pull from that example first, and then also from the things that we've heard today, and then also lastly on what you'll do for yourself. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you've subscribed. I hope that we'll see you next time, and you'll join me when we get crystal clear again. This has been Let's Get Crystal Clear with your host, Christal Jordan. I'll see you next time.